my husband decided he wanted to go into the restaurant business at the age of like, well, how old was he? Probably 39. He had gotten laid off from a corporate job. He had been laid off a number of times, and he came home and was like, I'm going to follow my dream. I'm going to go into the restaurant business.
Was he a chef or he just liked restaurants? Or?
Thank you for that. Because I was like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been together for a while. I've never heard this.
It was just out of the blue.
Yes. And I'm like, and by the way, I grew up working in restaurants. Like I've been the front of the house, the back of the house, the fryer, the bar back, the bartender, the waiter. I've counted out my tips and folded out my dollars and put them all in order at the end of the night. Like, what do you mean you want to work in the restaurant? Like what? And so he had this idea with his friend that they wanted to create a small 40-seat park and walk downtown local pizza place.
Okay.
Kind of stone hearth, coal-fired oven, the sourdough crust.
Sounds
work
great.
With all, yeah, and you know what? I got to hand it to him. I got to hand it to him. He and his partner, we had, at the time, I was pregnant with our son. Our son's now 20. So we had 2 kids under the age of, I don't know, they must have been like 8 and 5. And we had a little bit of money, not a lot, but we could cut back a little bit. And we figured he had 16 months. He had 16 months to raise money, 16 months to get the cash register flowing. And if he could not get this done in 16 months, your ass is getting a job.
Okay.
And meanwhile, I'm working full time, and like a lot of couples, we're just making it work. We're like barely making our bills paid, but we're going for it. We're in the crunch years. Mm-hmm. And the first location was fantastic. Fantastic. They had a line out the door.
Wow.
They won Best of Boston.
Wow.
They like, and like, we were like, wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow. So like complete idiots, we cashed out our entire life savings. We took out every credit card we could find. We took out a home equity loan and cashed that out. Friends and family invested to go to location 2 and 3.
Okay.
Did I tell you this was 2007?
Oh, wow.
And then 2008 hit. And if you're listening or watching, and you don't know the, oh, wow, there was this huge recession that hit in the U.S. The housing market turned upside down. Mm-hmm. And in New England, you'll know this as restaurateurs, we had 5 nor'easters that hit over the weekend, meaning the restaurants that were open were shut down on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And payroll checks started bouncing. There was also some issue with the price of flour, and that went skyrocketing. And the cost of the second location was twice what they thought. So by the time they had the doors open, they were out of money, and they had already signed a cost plus lease on the third location. They started factoring, scrambling, and payroll checks are bouncing. Chris hasn't been paid for 6 months. I lose my job. And at the age of 41, with 3 kids under the age of 10, we found ourselves $800,000 in debt.
Oh, my God.
Liens hit the house. The phone started ringing off the hook. So I just unplugged it. I mean, it didn't make the creditors go away, but it made the call stop. The bills started to pile up on the counter.
Oh, my.
He would hide in the basement of one of the locations as creditors were walking through, or the suppliers were like, the produce people were looking to get paid.
Yeah.
Employees' checks were bouncing. Like, it was so harrowing. And I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I think today I'm going to fuck up my life. Like, what happens is, you got to be careful, because you can get so caught up chasing something that you start to make decisions that are not truly aligned with your values, or you start to make decisions that aren't the smartest thing to do, but you do it anyway. And you start to lie to yourself, and the hole gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's kind of where my story begins. It begins at the age of 41, 16 years ago, waking up unemployed, and 3 kids under the age of 10, and pulling our kids out of the town sports because we can't pay for it. And days you couldn't go to the grocery store. And I was so full of anger. And I think the reason why is it's easier to be angry than it is to be afraid. And I was mad at Chris. I was mad at myself. Friends had invested. I couldn't figure out how we had gotten ourselves into this situation. And I became a person I didn't recognize. Like I've always been somewhat of a positive person. I've had a very optimistic outlook, and I've always been an extremely hard worker. Always had a job from as little as I can remember. I was figuring out how to make money. I will work anybody. I will outwork anybody. But I hit this moment in my life where I started to believe, settings in the mind, that this could not be fixed, that we had screwed up everything, that we would never get out of debt, that things would never change, that there was nothing we could do. And I started to succumb to that deep sense of despair and discouragement. And, the thing about life is that you always know what you could do to make something a little better. And in today's world, we have no excuse because you could just go to Microsoft Copilot or any other AI platform and type in the problem.
What should I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, give me a plan for 30 days. It takes 15 minutes a day that would make this slightly better based on research. You'll get the plan. But if you're so discouraged that you go, oh, well, that would work for you guys, but it's not going to work for me, you won't do it.
Yeah.
And your life doesn't change by thinking about it. It only changes through action. And so I was stuck in this place that everybody gets stuck. It's in knowing what you need to do, but not being able to make yourself do it. And when you're in that moment where the anxiety is crushing and the problems seem just so enormous and you start to lose hope, the amount of stress that you feel is never ending. And I knew I needed to find a job. I knew I needed to call my folks and be like, this is what's going on. Could you help us out? I knew I needed to call the bank, even though it was red. Like the crushing thing about like not having any money in the bank is that if any check then clears, they hit you with the 25, then they hit you with the 50, and then they hit you with the 75, and then they hit you with and it just feels like the hits keep coming. And, I rose to this moment in my life like a champ, basically screaming at my husband whenever I saw him and drinking myself into the ground and hiding in shame and lying about what was going on and telling myself there was nothing I could do. And the fact is, that's not true. There's always something you can do. It doesn't solve your problems overnight, but it absolutely starts to make things better over time.
How long did this last for?
Oh my God. Like we struggled financially for probably 6 or 7 years.
Did you lose the restaurants or did they go out of business or they
Great
kept running?
question. Great question. So what ended up happening is the restaurants continued going. I don't know how they managed to do the high wire act. They ended up getting the third location open.
Wow.
They were able to shut down the second one. And then one of their investors that they were very transparent with came in and was a big restaurant person, understands that out of the first 5 locations or 4 locations, one's always going under. And unfortunately, it was their second. And it basically like took down the ship with them. But location 1 and 3 were solid.
Okay.
But the factoring, the lease, the percentage plus on the leases, like it was a disaster, and in terms of the P&L and what it actually looked like to operate the business. And then plus, as you know, as owners, the crushing pressure of feeling like you're not going to make payroll, feeling like you can't pay your vendors, feeling like your landlord's about to come in and you're hiding in the bathroom, feeling like...
That never goes away, by the way. It doesn't matter how successful you are or whether or not it's even true, that feeling, that fear of it could go away never goes away.
Yes.
But I also feel like maybe that's a defense mechanism or some sort of like thing inside you that keeps you fighting to stay... Yeah. Like, it's like I got to keep my head above water, but then you look down and you're 25 feet off of the water.
Yes.
But you're still fighting for your life.
Yes.
As if you're about to sink.
Well, I think that's a really important thing. And you can stop and ask yourself this right now as you're listening or watching us. Is like my productivity and fuel coming from a sense of the shoe's going to drop, I'm fucked, I got to keep going. Scarcity, fear, which a lot of my success was fueled that way when I started to really build something. because all I was focused on, I got to pay off the debt. I can't afford to say no. I got to, yes,
Definitely rocket fuel.
yes.
Maybe not the healthiest fuel,
But at some point,
but it helps.
it does until it actually is something you notice, because it is possible to recognize that coming from a sense of this could all go away, so I better do everything now, which is driven by fear and a lack of trust in self, that is a very different energy than I can figure this out. I can take a deep breath. I can come and be motivated by a completely different value or a different goal. I can trust in my ability, not like some egoic thing. Because I think when things started to turn around for me and I started to build the business that you see now, it was 1000% driven by survival. Because what ended up happening during this period of our life is I was drunk on bourbon one night, and it was February 2008. Chris was nowhere to be found because he's a smart guy, and I was like a raging bitch. And I'm giving myself that pep talk. That's it, woman. Tomorrow, it's the new you. Yeah. Tomorrow, you got to pull yourself together. You have got to get a job. You have got to tell you have got to be honest with your friends. You've got to start taking care of it. You've got to have one Manhattan, not four. And by God, when that alarm rings, you can't lay there in bed and hit that snooze button 6 times. You have got to get up. You have got to get those kids on the bus. And all of a sudden, this rocket ship, I swear to God, this is what happened. This rocket ship launches across the television screen. And it was probably the bourbon. Because I was like, oh my God, I hear you, God.
Seeing things.
Yeah, I'm going to launch myself out of bed like a rocket tomorrow. That was it. It was a Tuesday morning, February 2008. The alarm rang. And the one thing I believe is you're one decision away from a different life. The decision changes the trajectory. The decision is like a directional signal that points you in a different direction. And the decision for me was the alarm went off, and I immediately remembered that dumb rocket launch thing. And then I made a fatal mistake that all human beings make. Instead of doing what I needed to do, I stopped and thought about how I felt about doing what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And if you think about something for more than 5 seconds, the automatic loops in your brain just take right over. In come the excuses, in come the old patterns, in comes the anxiety, in comes the fear. And that morning, I felt it. I was like, oh, rocket launch? Like, Jesus, I hate my husband. I hate my life. Like, this fucking sucks. How's getting out of bed? And I'm reaching for the snooze button like I had done every morning for almost a year. And then I just started counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I stood up. And it was just like a blip of a moment. But it felt like I had won, because it was the first moment that the fear and the anxiety and the crushing situation that we were in didn't win. Like the will and the resolve to do better did. And that was the beginning. And I just started using this countdown technique every single time there was something I needed to do. I needed a job, but I didn't want to pick up the phone and call people and ask for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like, how many of us see other people doing things we want to do, whether it's starting a restaurant or making money online or releasing our music or starting a podcast, and you watch everybody else and you sit and think and talk yourself out of it. And that will always be the case in your life if you cannot teach yourself to take the action before you're ready. And your emotions and the excuses are always going to be there. But you can learn this skill, and this is what this period of my life taught me, that if you can teach yourself how to get out of bed on the mornings when you don't want to, but you simply do it because you said you would, not because of integrity, but because you know that the secret to life is not thinking about who you want to be, but acting like the person you want to be. And you win that battle decision by decision by decision. And I had this tool now, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to help me cut through all of the resistance inside me, all of the evidence outside me, all of the overwhelm that was justified, by the way.
Was had you heard that somewhere?
No.
You just can't kind
No,
of
I
came to you?
invented it. Like
Wow.
I was inspired by a rocket on television.